welcome back to this lecture. In this class, we will learn about method overriding. Before I start my lecture, I must tell you that for past 24 hours, I've been in trouble because my screen recording tools have kind of deceived me. I've been recording for 40-50 minutes. Only when ended recording, I came to know that my software is not working. Really a very troubling time on me. I mean, not happened only once, but thrice. When I check it on 1 or 2 minute video, it's working fine. But then when I record my actual lecture for 40-50 minutes, then in the end I come to know that it's not working. Anyway, this is part of my learning. Anyway, I have changed my recording tool. Now I'm using ShareX. Hopefully this will work. So in this lecture we will be covering method overriding. I think we have discussed a lot about method overriding, and this is the first time we are formally we are going to discuss method overriding. Method overriding is actually different from method overloading. We have covered method overloading in past. We have discussed that method overloading is when you've got a method with the same name but different signature. The discussion of method overriding is when you are in inheritance. When you have got a base class and when you have got a derived class, and when both of these classes have got same method with same name and even same signature, then that is called method overriding. See the difference. When you are talking about method overloading, you are talking about two methods in same class having same name but different signature. But when you talk about method overriding, you are talking about same method in two different classes. Both of them are base and derived class, super and subclass. Method name is same as well as their signature, right? So method overriding is obviously different from method overloading, and usually you talk about method overriding whenever you are talking about inheritance. So say for example, I have a class, I call it animal, right? It's a very classical example to cover when you talk about method overriding. So I have a class animal which includes a method public void sound, right? This method has to be empty because we don't know which animal we are talking about. So obviously this has to be empty. I cannot write meow or how ho or maybe any other sound because at this stage I don't know which animal we are talking about, right? But if I come to class animal and if I extend I come for a class cat and I extend it from animal and now if I override same method public void sound, right? Now I know which animal I'm talking about. It's cat, so I don't need to make it empty. I can write here the sound of the cat, system.out.println, and that is meow, right? Okay, so you get an idea, huh? Now see, this is method overriding. We have public void sound in the animal and same public void sound in cat, and cat is subclass of animal. This is method overriding. I mean, if I just remove this from here, then this is not a method overriding because these are two different classes. Obviously this sound is inside cat and this sound is inside animal, and they are not bound in inheritance relationship. You cannot call it method overriding. Method overriding is only when you have super and subclass relationship between two classes, right? So this one is method overriding. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to declare another class which actually is dog, right? And that extends animal, right? And then even in dog I have got the same method, right? Sound, and you know the sound of dog, how, right? So now we have the sound method which is overridden by cat as well as animal. Usually this method overriding, actually when you are in the base class, you actually define what actions an animal should perform. So any any animal which is going to extend from class animal, he has to implement this action. So when you define this inside animal, in a way you are going to explain what an animal can do. So maybe inside this animal we can have another method, say for example public void food, what food an animal is going to eat or drink, right? So here obviously when it is cat, you know the favorite food of cat, so I can write here system out dot println cat likes milk, right? And then if similar method, if we have it for dog, right, if it is for dog, then we'll say dog likes meat, right? So this actually gives you an idea that more than one method can also be overridden. And here you see when you declared animal, in a way you kind of wrote a contract. You say if you want to be animal, you need to perform these two actions, right? One action is you need to have a sound, another action is you should be eating something. Obviously these are not only two, there can be many, but presently we limit to these two, right? And remember one thing, uh, uh, if you recall from my previous lecture, we can store, you know, object of derived class in the reference of base class, and then this actually gives birth to a very beautiful concept in object-oriented programming. We call it dynamic method dispatch, or we can also call it a polymorphism, right? Don't worry, we'll cover that polymorphism in my next lecture, but in this lecture you just get an idea about method overriding, right? So I need to create another class. I call it overriding demo, right? Overriding demo. Inside this I got public static void main string arg, and then here if I create an object of dog, d equal to new dog, you know that, and then if I say d dot sound, you will be able to call this overridden method, right? You'll be able to call this overridden method. If I save it, overriding demo dot java, copy this path, overriding demo, is the spelling correct? Overriding demo, right? Okay. Come here, cls java c overriding demo.java, it has been compiled. Java overriding demo, you can see this produces how, right? Okay, so yeah, I need to keep it here. Then as I told you earlier, you can also store object of derived class in reference of base class animal a. So now if I say a equal to new dog, what I'm going to do, I'm going to, you know, store object of dog inside a, which is the reference of animal, and this is quite possible because we know that dog is driven from animal, right? In this arrangement, if you say a dot sound, you know that a is the reference of animal, a is the reference of animal, but we have object of dog stored inside animal, so it is quite possible to call this method, right? And I hope that you remember from our yesterday's discussion that we can only call those methods which are declared in animal or those which are overridden, right? Any other method which is additionally defined by the dog, those methods you cannot call. For example, if I write here public void, I say uh, I can write here maybe a method 2, right? uh, and this method I write here I am a dog method. I am a dog method, right? So obviously calling this method 2 won't be possible, but before that let us see behavior of a dot sound, right? So I say java c wording demo java, so you can see it is still how, right? Now but if I try to call method 2, that should not be called, because method 2 is a method that is not known to animal. So if you call this method 2 on the reference of animal, animal is unaware of method 2, so that should not be called, right? So you can see here cls java c, you can see here cannot find symbol method 2, although method 2 is declared inside dog, but because you are calling it on reference of animal you cannot. But if you make this reference as a reference of dog, now this should not be a problem. So you can see here java c, you can see I am a dog method, right? So you got this idea of method overriding. Now remember one thing, in overriding there is a rule that if you have a method in base class and if its access modifier is declared, then you cannot have more restrictive access modifier when you are overriding it. For example, if this method is public here, you cannot make it less restrictive. You know, default is less restrictive and public default is more restrictive and public is less restrictive. So if you change this to more restrictive, then it will be an issue. You can see here java c, you can see it cannot override sound in anyone attempting to assign weaker access privilege. It was public, so you can see here it was public, and here we tried to make it default, and default is more restrictive, right? But if say for example you have this method, you know, default here, and now if you are overriding, this should not be an issue. And you also take a note that this default and we are making it public inside dog, that should not be an issue, right? You can see here this was not an issue. So the bottom line is, when you have got an access modifier inside base class, if you are going to override it, you can assign a less restrictive access modifier. You can go a level down, but you cannot go a level up. And all the levels of access modifier in Java, they are actually like this. You know, public is the least restrictive, then you have your protected, and then default, and then most restrictive is obviously private, right? So you can go in this direction, but you cannot go, you can go in this direction, but you cannot go in this direction, right? So remember this rule of assigning access modifier when we are in dealing with the method overriding in inheritance, right? Okay, so I end this discussion here, and when I come back I'll be discussing this beautiful concept of dynamic method dispatch, which is actually, you know, polymorphism, runtime polymorphism in Java. Thank you very much.